Gather around, you learn it, help me spread the news. Tell that lonesome story of the low-down mother blues. Well, if I take 2 steps forward and you take 3 steps back, it's hard to call it progress when the wheels fly off the track.
My name is Mike Grimm, and I work for the Nature Conservancy here in Sturgeon Bay, Door County, Wisconsin. And we're just going to talk a little bit about how, why and how to plant trees. And a little bit about why trees are, well, they're really important parts of our landscape up here in northern Wisconsin in Door County. They have, of course, wildlife benefits, which are pretty obvious. They provide food, shelter, cover for birds and other wildlife. And now, increasingly, we're thinking about trees as mitigating opportunities for climate change work. Trees store carbon. They build up carbon in their trunks, in their branches, in their roots over their lifespan. And this carbon is stored first in the tree, and then as the tree falls in the forest, that carbon is sequestered on the forest floor or in the forest soil. So these trees are now recognized as very important factors in capturing carbon from the atmosphere and returning it to the earth. So we're going to be planting, I'm going to show a couple of species, how to plant a couple of species here in this old field. This is an old field up in northern Door County. You can see the sod that's on the ground, some old field grasses. There's probably some forbs in here. I can see wild strawberry, and I see some sedges and other grasses. So it's a pretty thick sod, and we're going to plant some trees that are in the bucket here. These are likely 1 to 2 year old trees. There's a mix. I've got some balsam fir here. White cedar, black cherry, and I don't have any spruce in my bucket, but we're also planting spruce. We're planting red pine and white pine as well into these fields. The strategy that the Nature Conservancy has for our tree planting program really is to acknowledge that we are not initially replanting a forest. We hope in the future that a forest will cover this ground, but now to start that process, we're really just planting trees into this old field sod with the idea or the goal or the concept, I guess, that these conifers, mostly conifers, there are a few hardwoods in here, but mostly conifers, as they grow, they will the canopies of these trees will grow together and create a dense enough shade that it will kill the sod, basically kill this, very thick sod here, because this sod really is a very intense competitor towards our native wildflowers and other shrubs and other trees that really form the whole forest. So these trees that we're planting out here are really the agents of change, in a sense that they're going to shade out this grass, knock it back, decrease its vitality, and then over time the seeds from the adjoining native forest are going to blow in here, or they're going to be carried in by wildlife, or insects will start moving these seeds in on the ground underneath these conifers, and they're going to have a better chance of survival. And that's when the forest really starts to be restored. And so it's a combination of a little bit of human intervention as well as natural processes that are going to get this forest back on this ground. So to plant, shovel and plants and ground and feet and hands, I suppose, and your mind all work together to get these trees going, give them a good start. So I'll just, I guess, demonstrate a couple of ways in which I do it. So there's the old way, and it's still good, of just making a hole. Kind of break up that soil under the sod. And that's probably big enough. This is good. This is good soil. So we've got a hole, and I should say before I take the trees out and take a tree out and put it in the hole, just a couple of comments about preparing your trees for planting. These trees are like this balsam here. It's probably this might be a 2-year-old or 3-year-old tree, seedling, and it's bare root. You can see there's no dirt on it, and it comes in a box from either the state DNR, Wisconsin DNR, state of Wisconsin. They have nurseries that sell trees to the public. There are also some private nurseries where we get trees, and the public and anyone else can buy trees as well. And they'll come in bundles of maybe 25, 30 trees in a bundle. You may have to sometimes have a minimum order of 100 trees or so if you're planting at this size. But this is the way they come. They come packaged in plastic sacks inside cardboard boxes, and they deliver them to you. So you take them out, and we carry them into the field in these 5-gallon buckets. There's a little bit of water in the bottom, just maybe an inch or two, just to keep the roots damp. We kind of swish them around a little bit. You don't want the tree roots to be underwater very long because they can actually drown out. So there's just enough water just to keep them damp. One thing that's important when you're on a day like today, which is sunny and it's windy, it is cool out here today, which is good. It's great for planting. But the sun and the wind can dry these tree roots out very fast. So you don't want to take your tree out, lay it on the ground, and then start digging your hole, because just in that couple of minutes that it takes to dig your hole, those very fine root hairs can dry out and die back, and that's not a good thing to get these trees going. So you want to keep them in the bucket where they're protected and damp. One other thing that I just want to mention: a lot of people have a sense that they need to prune the roots before you plant. It's not really that necessary unless there's a broken root. Most of these roots on these conifers are pretty fibrous and soft. They aren't going to snap, and so you don't have to worry about pruning the roots. Some of the hardwoods, like these black cherry here, which we're going to be planting, they're pretty fibrous too, but if they have sometimes they have this long taproot and it's broken, yeah, you might want to prune that off. But really, root pruning is not really all that necessary. So, we're ready to plant. And I have a rule, and I don't know if it's I think it's what I learned from other people. It's if you plant them high, they never die. If you plant them low, they never grow. And what what that means is, like on this tree, you can see it was probably taken out of the nursery at about this height. This is probably where the ground was, right above the top root. So you don't want to plant it so that it's buried up to here. And you really don't want to plant it so the roots are exposed. You want to try to hit that sweet spot where the soil was, where the seedling was grown. So, you know, right around in here. And if you plant it a little higher, that's probably okay. But if you start planting it that deeply, that's going to start stressing this tree when it's young. So to get it in the ground, I just sort of set it there with one hand, push the dirt in around the root as quickly as you can, because you don't want that root exposed. Just kind of work it in there. Force it in gently. You don't have to, you know, you don't want to stamp it in there. Just want to be kind of gentle with these trees. And then the top part, which had the sod, I just sort of put that upside down on top. And then keep them as vertical as you can. Shows good workmanship, and it's good for the tree if you keep them vertical. So that's it. Now, because we're planting thousands of trees here, we really are not going to be watering these trees. We really are going to have to depend upon the weather to bring the rain at the, you know, early on here to keep these trees going. They will survive. The soil is nice and moist right now, and there's moisture on the roots, so they'll be able to go for a couple of weeks, you know. But we really do depend upon the weather to bring rain, particularly in May and early June, to get those roots established and get them going. And most often that works. The other thing, why we're planting these species that we are, the fir, spruce, red pine, white pine, is that these are, besides being good shade producing trees, and they're going to kill the sod, they're also trees that the deer don't seem to favor in terms of browsing, because we do have a high deer population in Door County, and we have had severe losses in our plantings from deer browse. So we want to plant something that the deer don't like to eat. And let's see. Well, there's one other way that I put trees in the ground, and I'll just show you over here. This is just another method, and it works sometimes. Just make sure I'm not near another tree. So it's just the process of making one slit, making another one kind of at a 90-degree angle, and then kind of opening it up. This works best when you have small rooted, sort of fibrous rooted plants like the cedar here. And you just put it in and you close it up. And there you have it. So that's the other way that I plant. Kind of depends again on the type of tree you have. If it's a soft fibrous root system without big tap roots, that way can work. And if the soil is good, that way works. If the trees have a bigger taproot system, or just bigger root system in general, then I'll sort of go with the old-fashioned hole digging process.
Who's gonna drink the water after the melting snow? In counties like Kewanee, the land's gonna let us know. Mother Earth is watching, Mother Earth is listening too. Sometimes.
So I'm Bob Boltman with the Forest Recovery Project, and we're here today helping out the Nature Conservancy on this beautiful piece of property along the Mink River Preserve. This is a land that was pastured, and the Nature Conservancy recently acquired it. It's right on the borders, right in those cedar woods over there. The Mink River, headwaters of the Mink River flows through. And so we're restoring that, the woodlands around the Mink River. The Mink River is a critical breeding place for the Hines emerald dragonfly. It's the only dragonfly on the endangered species list in America, and it thrives right here on the peninsula. So the more buffering we can give to that water as the snow melts and the rain falls and it runs over the ground or percolates into the ground, it makes its way to the springs that feed the Mink River. And all those springs and rivulets of water are what support the Hines emerald dragonfly. So keeping that water clean is critically important. The Hines emerald dragonfly lived a few other places in the United States and it's been extirpated or gone extinct in those areas because they've either changed the flow of the water, or they've filled in wetlands, or they've changed the water quality. So the Hines emerald dragonfly is like a canary in the coal mine, really giving us a good sense of water quality. If we've got good water quality and we can keep the habitat intact, then they'll continue to survive. So the Forest Recovery Project has been around for going on 4 years now here on the peninsula, and we aim to assist conservation groups like the Nature Conservancy, the Door County Land Trust, any public land entity, state parks, county parks, anywhere we can get public access. We're trying to help raise money and awareness about the importance of reforestation. And this year, the Nature Conservancy had enough money in their budget that they're the ones that bought most of these trees, but not all the conservation groups always have staff time or money. So that's where the Forest Recovery Project hopes to kind of fill in that gap and help those groups so that we can be planting every year. We have enough land, enough conservation land in Door County like this that are open fields that really would benefit from the restoration of the forest. And nature will fill in, and we're very lucky here because we're so close to many native trees that there's actually a lot of little ones, some cedars here where now that we're done mowing, those cedars will grow up too. So there's a couple other pines and spruce in here. So this is going to grow back real nice. This is a really good field to be planting, and not only do we have a lot of good recruitment from things that are already seeding in, but it's a real wet year. We plant conifer heavy because most conifers like white pine, red pine, white spruce, even the tamarack that we're planting here in a little bit of a low area, they all like to have their terminal bud in the sun. They like the sun. So if they're too shaded, they're going to get crowded out and they're going to die eventually. So getting these started helps them stay in the canopy. And then also, as they get bigger, they're going to shade the grass. They're going to shade the turf out. And so shading the turf out allows other seeds from the surrounding forest to blow in and start sprouting. Most trees, whether they're deciduous or conifers, can't get started in a thick turf. Now, in this exact spot where I'm at now, you can see it's actually thin enough where we do have some natural recruitment of native local trees. But there's areas out here, like right over there, where the turf is very thick. And so the native trees will have a hard time getting started there until there's enough shade to shade out the turf. So that's kind of the twofold idea about planting with the conifers. The other thing that the conifers do, and conifer being cone-bearing, we think of those as the pines and the spruces, tamarack and such, the fir. They shade the ground 365 days a year. So this ground then will be shaded longer throughout the season. It'll hold snow longer into the spring, and it will really hold more moisture in the ground. And so it kind of keeps the water table up, keeps the water table clean. So conifers have multiple purposes for us. Again, that main factor is really shading out the turf, especially on other planting sites where the turf is thicker.
Mother Blue